Hi, welcome back to MyFSY. This is our Athletes Yoga program, and it's the Essential Athletes series. So we're trying to give you the key poses that really athletes from all different sports need. And so we'll get right to it. To participate in this, we recommend you have a spot at the wall, sticky mat, very important, and a blanket, a block. Strap sounds like a lot of gear, but especially when you think of just how much tightness accumulates in the legs and in the hips from all the training that you're doing. You'll want to give yourself these simple props to be comfortable in the poses without having to strain. So you can see I'm taking this belt and just making a loop out of it. And it wants to be a fairly big loop. You could use, it doesn't have to be a fancy yoga belt, right? You could use an old karate belt that you tied up. But just something that you could have that was secure, that could make a nice loop. Then take your blanket and put it fairly close to the wall. And this will just serve as some extra padding. I'll do it right along with you. You're going to put your right foot forward so that the toes are touching the wall. And the left knee back, so this would be just a simple lunge pose, right? But the wrinkle is that you take this belt and put it all the way around the back of your pelvis, and then the back of your thigh, and loop it so the other end is all the way on your right kneecap. So I wonder if you can see how I've got this diagonal going from my right kneecap all the way to the back of my left thigh. Once you've sorted that out, try sliding your back knee back. In fact, I need to move my blanket as well. Slide your back knee back as far as it can comfortably go. Then snug up your belt so you have a good amount of tension on it. And the idea for the belt in this particular pose is to give you some feeling for the roll of your back leg. It doesn't want to just be sort of limp and dull and you're like tugging on it to stretch. You actually want to be pushing back with your left thigh. It won't be a huge movement. Most of the actions in yoga are not big, overt movements. They're more subtle things. But right now, as I have my hands on the wall, I'm focusing on pushing my right kneecap into the one part of the strap and my left thigh back into the other part of the strap. And that will start to obviously stretch the front of your hip. But even more than that, it will probe deeper into the real meat of your hip flexor, your psoas, to be precise. You'll start to feel that vital muscle that really never gets properly lengthened in all of our athletic training. You'll start to feel that getting opened. So again, push the front knee forward, the thigh back, and then moving the length of, or any stretch you're feeling in your hip flexor, move that all the way up into your chest so that it starts to feel like the whole front of your torso is lengthening out. Breathe into it. And then release. To release, move your right knee back and slip the belt free. Second side, take the left foot forward. Same deal. The belt loop goes around the knee. It might even be easier for you to see on this side. And across the back of the thigh. Again, you slide. You can see I've been doing this one for 17 years, so it's a little easier for my legs to open. But if you haven't haven't ever done it before, you might notice that your stride is way shorter. That's fine. Just move it back a comfortable distance. Then focus on the pushing of the knee forward in one direction and the thigh backward in the opposite direction. Kneecap pushes forward into the belt, which is moving toward the wall. And your thigh wants to resist that by pushing back away from the wall. And again, your intention here is to open or to lengthen your hip flexors. You'll probably experience that as a stretch, a healthy stretch. And the more you push back on that right thigh, the closer to the bone you'll feel it. So the depths of that right hip flexor will start to be probed. And again, any amount of opening that you're starting to sense there, any amount of length and release, feel like you could move that up the front of your spine into the lift of your chest. Into the lift of your chest. A couple more breaths. And release. Move your left knee back. Free the strap all the way out. In fact, you can stand out of that loop. A lot of times when we use props in yoga, they're for support. And like I said, so that you don't have to strain to be in these positions. But the other reason for using them is because they bring awareness to certain parts of your body that are typically ignored. So if you could pretend that you still had the straps across the back of your thighs, what I want you to do here is to stand facing the wall with your hands about the height of your lower ribs. Make sure your hands are shoulders width apart, and then walk your feet back so that your torso comes parallel to the ground. Again, feel the residual touch of those ropes you just had on the back of your thighs, or at least pretend they were still there. And rather than just pushing your knees back, which I'll demonstrate here, it looks like this. That's just snapping your knees back, which is very agitating and destabilizing to the knees. Rather than that, we'll call that the wrong thing to do. Feel for those imaginary ropes you had on your thighs and push the tops of the thighs back. And that elicits a whole different experience for your back. I'll show each one again because they're quite different. This is snapping your knees back, which sort of shocks my knees and irritates my back. This would be pushing your thighs back. And when you do that, you'll start to feel a wonderful length happening in your lower back. You probably will feel some stretch for the backs of your legs, but it's not uber intense. Breathe as you continue to direct the tops of your thighs back. Meanwhile, push your hands into the wall so that you're creating opposition and more length. One more good breath there. Then bend your knees, walk your feet forward, come up to standing. Simple. You're lengthening your spine, you're opening the backs of your legs, you're making more space in your body. That one's easy enough. To do it upside down just is an interesting wrinkle. You sit on the ground with your legs straight, the soles of your feet touching the wall. Take your fingertips 6 inches behind the back of your pelvis and mark a line. Now, if you had a little putting marker like the golfers use, you could put that to mark your 6-inch line. In lieu of that, I'll just put a little block so that when I turn around, I know where that line 6 inches behind the back of my pelvis was. Maybe I should move this so you guys can see. Put the heels of your hands on that 6-inch line that you just marked. And just like you had moments ago, spread your fingers, make sure the hands are shoulders width apart. So you can see it's really the same thing. My hands were on the wall moments ago, now they're on the ground. My feet were on the ground moments ago, now I'll walk them up the wall. Either way, the action remains the same. Feel for those imaginary straps at your upper thighs. Push the thighs up to the sky. Push your hands down into the ground. Put your thighs up, enthusiastically up to the sky. Breathe, and don't be surprised if your breath quickens. It can be pretty invigorating. Don't be surprised if your breath quickens. Just let it flow while you continue to push up through your thighs and get your whole spine to grow. Release. Walk your feet down the wall. Come on up to standing. Same pose, only upside down, right? And so we like that one because it does tend to open the shoulder joints. It is engaging for your mind, but more than anything, it's the re-lengthening of your spine. That's super important for really all your body's processes. Keeping that length in mind, I want you to take your block, find your way to the wall and or onto your mat, and walk your feet out wide to a nice wide stride. I'm going to show you doing this next pose on my left side first. Traditionally, we do it with your right leg first. So for you at home, have the outside edge of your left foot against the wall. I'm doing it with my right. Walk your feet out wide so it's a nice long stride. Then you turn the left toes in just about 15 degrees relative to that wall. Turn your right toes all the way out 90 degrees, again, relative to the wall. So your right toes should be facing toward the short side of your mat. You take your block, put it by your outer right ankle, and then once you've set that up, just come back up to standing. The nice thing about the wall is it gives your heel something to push into. So take a moment to root your heel into that little corner where the wall meets the ground. Then look at your other leg, your right one, make sure it's straight. Make it strong and straight, not locked, remember, you're not pushing your knee back, but strong, steady, and straight. Then you simply spill your pelvis over that straight right leg, and you put your right hand down. When you're a little tighter in the beginning days, you'll probably just be on your fingertips. Eventually, you can put your whole palm down. One day, you might even be able to lower the block. Don't compete with yourself. Don't overdo. You're trying to be at a place, you're trying to be right where you are without struggle. So here we are in the triangle pose. Stretch your left arm up to the sky. And we love this one for the way it continues to elongate your spine while at the same time stretching and strengthening your legs. They're strengthening because you're making them straight. You lift your kneecaps up, make the legs firm. Stretching, obviously, because in order to bring your hand down to the block, the back of your leg has to open. Most of the athletes I've taught this to have said it feels really good for their back. And it feels even better if you turn your chest open to the sky. Look up at your top hand. Breathe. Feel your feet again. Pushing down into the feet. Come all the way back up to standing. Turn your feet parallel. Then walk your feet all the way together. Second side. You turn so that the outside edge of your right foot will now be against the wall. Walk your feet out to a nice, healthy, wide stance. And again, turn the left toes in just slightly. Turn the right toes all the way out, so they're facing the short side of the mat. Set your block up to the outside of your left ankle. And when you're up at standing, take a moment to ensure again that the legs are straight, the feet are well organized, and that your spine is long. So from the initial little practice we did, you say, all right, I'm going to find that same essence of long spine. And then you spill your pelvis to the left. So remember, I'm doing the opposite leg as you. You'll be folding over your left leg. Put your left hand down on the block. Remember, you can be on fingertips to make it a little easier. You can turn the block down a notch to make it a little more difficult. Never make it so difficult that your breath is gripped. You want your breath to keep moving. So again, strengthening. Lift the kneecaps up. Make the legs firm. Lengthening, that's the stretch you feel, and it will be embellished by your exhales. You'll feel the back of the leg start to release its grip on the exhales. Then pushing down your bottom hand, open your chest to the sky. From the strength of your feet, lift all the way up to standing. Turn those feet parallel. Walk your feet together. And turn around to face the other way again. Remember that in all athletics, you're moving your limbs in space. The legs are moving. The arms are swinging a racket or a bat or something. A lot of times in yoga, the limbs are fixed. The legs are fixed. We've stabilized them to the ground or against the wall. And what that does, it's called closed kinetic chain movements, if you're interested in the technicality. But what that does is starts to create more strength and length in the core of the body. The core of the body, the spine. When the limbs are fixed, the movements you'll feel are happening in the spine. And so it can be all these poses can be a boon for some of the back aches and pains that you typically feel. Last one in this sequence is to walk your feet out wide to a nice wide stance again. You don't need to be on the wall for this one. Just have your feet wide on your sticky mat. Strengthen your legs by lifting the kneecaps up. Lifting the kneecaps up. And at the same time, press the mounds of your big toes down so you make them super firm. Then, folding from your hips, you spill your pelvis down till your fingertips touch the ground. Don't worry about trying to get your head to the ground. In fact, I'd rather you keep your back nice and parallel to the ground so your back stays long. From here, walk your right hand 6 inches forward in front of your right shoulder. Take your left hand to the outside edge of your right shin. Renew the length that you have in your spine by pushing your thighs back into those imaginary straps. And as your thighs push back, lengthen your waist. Pull with your left arm and turn to look under your right armpit. Again, pull with your left arm and turn your spine so you look under your right armpit. Another multifaceted pose, wonderful though. Leg strengthener, leg stretcher. Spine lengthener, spine twister. You turn and twist the spine. And then release. Come back through center. Trot on the other side. Your left hand forward, a good 6 inches in front of your shoulder. Take your right hand to the outside edge of your left shin. Refresh the actions of the legs. Remember, your thighs push back to grow your back. You breathe. You pull with your right arm to turn. turn. And as you turn, remember, you're not moving the limbs so much. The legs are fixed. They're stable. You're trying to turn your spine to unwind some of the excess tension in your spine. And release. Come back to center. Heel toe your feet a little closer together, and that makes it easier to stand all the way up. So there it is. Essential poses for really all athletes to condition your legs, to restore the length of your spine, and to unwind tension in your back. Simple practice, but I hope you repeat it several times so you get the feel for it and implement it in your training. Thanks for practicing with us. See you next time.